achievement.
Question number 7, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Associate Minister of Education and asks, has he read or received the Ministry of Education advice provided to the previous Minister of Education, which states charter schools, quote, have not consistently led to significant increases in achievement?
The Honourable John Banks.
No, I haven't received that specific piece of advice. As the member said, it was sent to the previous minister. No one is claiming that any initiative in education policy works all the time, everywhere. If there is such an initiative, I wonder why that member's party didn't introduce it over the 9 years that they were in government. What we do know, Mr Speaker, is that the New Zealand model of charter schools will benefit from knowledge of successes and failures overseas.
Supplementary.
The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
In light of that answer, would he consider charter schools a success if 37% of their students do worse than those in public schools and another 50% no better? And if so, is he aware that those were the outcomes of the US charter schools according to Stanford University and their report referenced in 2009 by the Ministry of Education?
The Honourable John Banks.
Mr Speaker.
Order. Order. I want to hear the answer.
Speaker. Mr Speaker, this is what we do know. We do know that the new minister. We do know that the
Order. And now look, I took it that the honourable member's question was a serious question, and so I'd ask her colleagues to make sure they don't make so much noise that they interrupt the minister and distract him. But the minister should answer the question. And the question was very specific as to whether the minister would consider it a success were the 37% of the students to be considered to have done less well, 50% to have done approximately the same, and whether the minister would consider that was a successful outcome. The Honourable John Banks.
Mr Speaker, what we do know is that there is a long tail of people failing in the education system in this country. About
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I think you asked the Minister to address the question. He's a little way into an answer which has to do with the New Zealand situation and not a response at all to the question.
Order. I think we have to allow the Minister the opportunity to answer the question. He started by addressing the current situation. I hope he will move on to the research figures that were included in the member's question. The Honourable John Banks.
Mr Speaker, we hear the research figures. If we were to rely on those research figures, then we would give up on the long tail of underachievement in the education system. What we do know is the new Secretary of Education understands charter schools as they exist in the United Kingdom very, very well and is supportive. What we do know is we spend $7 billion per year on education students up and down the country. And it's the students' rights to get a world-class education. And I say to the interjector, students were entering the system when the member for Labour-Hutt was the Minister of Education. 1 in 5 will leave schools with no education, and this government is saying we can't have 1 in 5 leaving school with no education, so we're not going to take up the worst aspects of any overseas charter schools. We're going to adapt it to a New Zealand model that works for New Zealand kids, that the front bench member of the opposition wants to achieve in education, so that when they leave school they have the dignity of work, and that is what we're going to do. It's going to work. Give it a go. Don't give up on it before we've tried it.
The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta. Order. I want to hear the question now. The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Supplementary question. Is he aware that an independent study by the University of Michigan into the KIP charter school model found KIP's improved performance was a result of cherry-picking the students most likely to succeed?
The Honourable John Banks.
What we do know is that
Order. The Minister will resume his seat. Order. And I ask members not to interject before the Minister has even started his answer, but I say to the Minister that when a minister starts with what we do know, it usually indicates they have no intention of answering the question whatsoever. And it's not good enough. The question asked about a specific piece of research. The Minister may wish to acknowledge he's not familiar with that piece of research, that's fine, but shouldn't go on to talk about something totally different. And usually saying what we do know is an indication that it's going to be something totally different. Now, just to avoid, because time's passed, I invite the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta to repeat her question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is he aware that an independent study by the University of Michigan into the KIP charter school model found KIP's improved performance was a result of cherry-picking students most likely to succeed?
The Honourable John Banks.
Mr. Speaker, I haven't seen that piece of advice that talks about cherry-picking students. But what we want to know, what we want to do, is we want to make access to different ways of educating the 20% of young people that fall through the cracks, that don't make it and end up as statistics. What we do know also is that we've appointed a very able working group to recommend the precise policy settings and learning from research that the member talks about, so that we don't make the same mistakes as has been made overseas. We'll take the best of the research, we'll build on the information that we can gather together here, because we want this to succeed for the 20% of young people that fall through the cracks and end up as statistics. We're going to not give up on those young people.
Order. The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Will charter schools be able to raise revenue in addition to public funds from individuals and corporates, be accountable to these sponsors, and if so, is it possible that Sky City could sponsor one of his charter schools, and how will this transform the long tail of underachievement?
The Honourable John Banks.
As at Onehunga High School in Auckland, we want to make sure for our charter schools that the local community is involved, iwi is involved, church groups are involved, everyone interested involved, families are involved, industries involved, commerce is involved. We've all got to take ownership of the facts of the matter that 20% of our young people fail in the education system that minister was associated with when she was in a government, and the member for Hutt South was the minister and did nothing about it. We care about people that fall through the cracks. We're not worried about the 80% of people that achieve. We're going to make this work.
Order. Point of order, the Honourable Nanaia
In light of the Minister's answers, I seek leave to table two documents. The first document is the research report from Stanford University, which clearly shows that 37% of students do worse and 50% no better than in public schools.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Point of order, I seek
the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
I seek leave to table the University of Michigan report into the KIP school charter school model, which shows that improved performance was linked to cherry-picking of students most likely to succeed.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Question number 8, Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.